Welcome to Real Authority. Today I'm talking about 28 Years Later, the hotly anticipated third installment in the 28 Days Later franchise, which sees Danny Boyle and Alex Garland returning to the roles of director and writer respectively. 3 decades after the events of 28 Days Later, we find ourselves following a group of survivors on a small island in which one decides to go into the mainland, which is the outside where there's no quarantine and the zombies are there, where he finds a lot that can change his perspective on zombies forever. Before getting into it, this was absolutely one of the most exciting prospects of the entire year, even though it wasn't in my personal top 10 most anticipated films of the year. I think a lot of us can say that we were expecting this to be like fantastic, not just because of the trailer, but because of track record. When I mentioned Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's names, those are not names to be taken for granted. They are the people who started this franchise. They were literally director and writer of the original 28 Days Later movie, which is something that I think a lot of people took as guarantee that this would be amazing. Alex Garland's 2 previous features, Civil War and Warfare, which he also directed, were actually really good, and Danny Boyle is host to one of my favorite movies of all time, Trainspotting, so I wasn't going to doubt them no matter what. FYI, I'd only seen Days and Weeks for the first time a few months ago, and they are both shockingly great. Days is obviously better than Weeks, but in terms of Week, I felt it had a lot going for it, to the point where I was ultimately happy with what I got. Don't even get me started on that trailer. That trailer was amazing. Let's be real here. If nothing else, that trailer guaranteed butts in seats. With the Boots poem playing in the background, it was a very unique trailer that I think will be one of the most iconic movie trailers. Unfortunately, after seeing it, I feel it might be the only great thing that people will remember from this movie, aside from maybe one scene. I'm not joking, man. I was severely disappointed with 28 Years Later. 18 years, and this is what we got. Granted, this is the start of a supposed trilogy, and The Bone Temple is coming in January, and it shows. That said, I'm not going to act like it's terrible or anything, but in terms of, the hype for this movie, the hype is real. This movie fell short of it. Alright, getting into the positives, the acting, obviously, is great. I don't think anyone was doubting that. Aaron Taylor Johnson, great actor, does great here, despite his character. I haven't seen Joni Comer in a little bit of time, and she's a talented actress, and she continues to show it here. Alfie Williams also has many great moments as Spike, and I do feel he carries the weight of much of this movie. However, the one actor that I think most of us, and I'm not even sure if I'm right here, but I think a lot of people put their money on Ralph Fiennes giving a fantastic performance, maybe even the best performance of the movie, and he does here as Dr. Kelson. The plot is kind of revolved around him, so you would hope the payoff of seeing him in the movie would satisfy, and it does. In fact, one scene with him is the best of the movie and maybe one of the best moments of the year. Heartbreaking, yes, but it's easily the best scene of the movie, hands down. The opening scene is also good, but that emotional scene really got to me and made this entire experience feel a bit more valuable. Danny Boyle's directing was really good. I don't think I doubted the man for a single second. The movie mostly works because of his directing, even though there are some structural flaws, which I was not expecting, but hey, we're not in the negatives yet. Let's continue with the positives. Point is, Boyle can structure a movie to be great, so I do feel that he did the best way he could. Anthony Dodd Mantle's cinematography was really strong. I heard from a lot of sources, and I think this was one of the main selling points, that they record this on an iPhone. And I do think that makes it feel consistent with the styles and the cinematography of Days and Weeks, for the most part. These movies are not trying to look like Hollywood movies. They're trying to look like more low budget, and with a $60 million budget, it does show. But that's not a bad thing. Anthony absolutely did a great job with his cinematography. Hey, remember Teletubbies was supposed to be in this movie? Yeah, that's the opening scene. That was also strong. I don't think it's the best scene of the movie, but it does leave you wanting to see what this experience is about. And I gotta admit, there were some suspenseful sequences that really did work. What movie in this franchise doesn't have strong suspenseful moments? Unfortunately, the movie does have extreme issues that I don't know how they fell into that. First of all, the narrative and screenplay. I feel really bad because Alex Garland is a really good writer. While on the surface it is good, once you get into the story, it's just one of the most confusing decisions and narrative choices that you can make in this franchise. I'm not asking for consistency. I'm not asking for 28 Days Later again. I was fully aware that I would be getting a new experience, but the new experience I got in this franchise was just very lacking. And even though there were some suspenseful moments, I shockingly felt a lack of suspense. Like the other 28 Days Later movies weren't just built on the suspense, but they had great suspense nonetheless. They were built on the characters. This one is more built on the characters. Unfortunately, the characters aren't as strong as I would hope. They are decent enough, but in terms of like the story they are in, the script doesn't give them enough to really shine in their roles. And they still try to include as much zombie crap as possible, even though they are focused more on the story, and it feels very jarring. I just contradict myself. I probably did. Point is, characters are a bit more of the focus, but they still try to include zombie crap nonetheless. And unlike the other movies, they're just there because it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel terrifying. In fact, a lot of them look goofy. Well, actually, all of them look goofy. Not the designs themselves, but for some strange reason. And don't think I'm exaggerating. This is a fact. Literally every single zombie is nude. Why? It's just a weird decision, especially considering the fact that the other zombies look terrifying, and most of them only had the design changes for their eyeballs. It was great in the other movies, and it's kind of still great here. It's just a very weird decision. More importantly than that, the movie feels like it's going all over the place in terms of tone. Like, it's a very loud movie. And when I mean loud, I mean like crazy. Like, as in the zombies are louder than you could ever think, and the movie's trying to be structured in that way of being loud, crazy, balls to the wall, all over the place, no holds barred. And that leads me into my two biggest complaints, which is the editing and the score. Starting with the editing, like, even though most of the movie is fine editing wise, there are just some weird decisions that do not complement this movie and just make me go, this movie, what? Why would they do that? It's just so upsetting, because John Harrison's editing is mostly fine, but especially like in the first 30 minutes or so, you'll notice rough editing. Although I do kind of think the choice was doing the freeze frame on the zombie and then moving, like doing a panorama. I'm gonna try that in a minute. If you see it here, then that means that was my attempt. But yeah, that's basically what they did a lot of times. It was good, but in terms of the editing, it's hard to appreciate it when there are just blatantly bad editing decisions in this. It's fine otherwise, but it's definitely not fully great. Also, score from Young Fathers. Like, I haven't seen 28 Days Later for months. I don't remember if they had hard metal pop songs play during most of it, but in terms of this movie, it just felt obnoxious. But outside one great moment of music, the movie is just loud in its song decisions and music decisions in a way that kind of annoys. It takes me out of the plot and almost ruined the movie's best scene. They really should have just relaxed on making those decisions, because it's so noticeable and so obnoxious that that's the word I can use to describe the entirety of 28 Years Later. It's just an obnoxious film. It also contradicts itself at multiple points. In terms of the canon, it's just confusing with the other films. Not gonna get into it, but you are not gonna like the way they used Taylor Johnson in this film. Also, because of all the above, the pacing really falls flat. Like with the other 28 movies, I actually was engaged almost all the time. But here I couldn't help but find myself dip within the first 30 minutes, and it didn't really pick up until Ralph Fiennes shows up. Again, best character of the movie. Oh, one other thing, it feels like the movie is trying to set up for the rest of the franchise rather than building its own way at multiple points, so I thought I might as well mention that. Yeah, I feel bad I didn't like 28 Years Later, but I have a good feeling that a lot of people are going to leave with the same amount of disappointment. It is definitely the weakest of the three films so far, but it does enough, I guess, to make me excited for what they will do in the future. I just hope that they are able to learn from their mistakes, even though Bone Temple is releasing in January, so I'm not sure if they have it in the bag. But in terms of one of the most anticipated horror movies of all time, this will go down as a stark disappointment. Maybe when the Bone Temple comes out, it all makes sense and it becomes a better experience, but I unfortunately cannot recommend it as much as I want to. I can easily recommend Days and Weeks, but Years is just such a stark fall off from the high of those. It's not good enough to approve, it's not bad enough to reject. If you're curious, wait until streaming. 5 out of 10. Maybe I'll rewatch it and it gets better. Maybe the Bone Temple makes this movie feel more important to the canon, but otherwise, I don't really know how I can justify saying it's good or overall. Maybe technically so, even though there are some bad technical decisions in here, but other than that, this was really a sad experience. That's the end of this video. I am actually curious to hear what you thought about 28 Years Later, so feel free to leave a comment letting me know your opinion or any requests for another movie I should review. Otherwise, please leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.